All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm afraid to have a show of hands on that one, but I thought it would be a great way to introduce the topic of customer experience, just only because we just can't take it for granted, obviously. Now, obviously, you can say this is totally fictitious. It would never happen in our industry, right? This is something that would never happen to us. But what's the point here? Customer experience. After safety, customer experience is at the heart of what we do. This is why we have jobs. This is why we move this fascinating industry. And we can never lose sight of our customers. So what we're going to talk about right now is what we survey every year. We survey the customers. So the Global Passenger Survey acts as the voice of the customer. It provides us very insightful information about the various preferences and behaviors of our customers in a global fashion. And it really helps us drive the initiatives that has to transform the industry. So in this session, I will only cover some of the highlights. The survey has far more details than what you're going to see, but we're going to try to pick some of the highlights, and more information is available. You've already heard some of probably what you expect to hear about this morning in the panel discussions. Nevertheless, the survey will give you a bit of maybe statistical data and regional data that will, again, help us understand how we transform the industry and how good have we been, actually. Do we think we're making improvements or we're going backwards? So the way the session is going to work is I'm going to first introduce the results of the survey. And to make it interactive, I will make sure that you guys also participate. And I'm just going to bring up on screen the tool we're going to use. There's a tool called Slido that I will invite you to log in, as when we go through the survey, I will ask you some questions, and I'd like to compare the results of this audience versus what the customers have been telling us, just to see if maybe this crowd is different or if we align with the findings we have. So you have time to just log in to slido.com, and the code is hashtag GAPS19. And when I bring up the questions, you'll be able to answer. Now, this is going to be practice. On my session, it's going to be 3 questions. You have a choice of answer. When the panel gets on stage, it's going to get a bit more complicated because Kasia will give you the chance to ask your own questions. But at least you can warm up with this now. Okay, so let's go. Let's see what the customers are telling us. And we're going to discuss further with Kasia and the panel. We're going to debate this, ask questions, and get you to participate. So just to begin, the first thing is to give you a sense of how large the survey is. We have over 10,000 respondents globally, so around the world. We select the amount based on the size of the market, obviously, try to make it the most reflective of the travel industry. Various age group as well. We try to capture the thoughts of everyone in the survey, and the split of female-male is getting almost 50-50. We have 60% male this year, 38%. So we try to really keep a good eye on trying to capture the voice of everyone, and it is statistically viable. So first question, before I go into further, I'm sure you all logged into Slido right now. If you want to bring up, please, the first question. So I'm going to ask you get a couple of seconds to look at this. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being very, very dissatisfied, up to 10 being a super experience, I would like you to log in think about your travel experience of the last year. Maybe not one flight in particular, but if you were to talk about your experience in general, give me your rating of your experience. So you got 3 choices. First choice is, it's coming up over, right? You've understood this already. 1 to 5, really bad results. 6 or 7, I'd say sort of neutral, you do sort of a fair job. And 8, 9, 10 being good, very, very solid, very high satisfaction. So I'm going to give it a few more minutes. 59, 27. Dissatisfied. Okay. It's stabilizing. Yeah. Some people are not sure if it's good or bad. Okay, let's leave it at that. So 60% of the crowd, sort of, okay, I'm satisfied, maybe what I'm expecting. And Slido was back. So let's see what customers are telling us in comparison. So if you look at the 2019 score, right in the sort of middle, 75% of the customers globally would give a rating of sort of up to 7, which means fair job, I guess. I'm not wow, but it's fair, what I expect. And it hasn't changed for the past 2 years, 2017, 18, 19. So there's a few messages out there. We keep doing, it seems, a fair job, but we haven't really moved the needle up. And that's what the survey is going to tell us about where we can improve. What's interesting is then if you compare to the people who are ranking their experiences very high level, underneath, it really drops by a large number of percentage of points. So in 2019, only 52% of the travelers globally would say that their experience is anywhere in the high satisfaction, 8, 9, 10. So when we're talking about, sustainability of the industry and making sure, we secure the future and people don't use other modes of transport, I think it's very revealing that there's efforts to do to move from doing a fair, decent job to something much better to get these results a bit higher. So, but we'll get the debate to discuss further and get the panel, to debate further after and also give you a chance to comment on that. Now, the next thing we do, obviously, we ask the customers about their general experience, but we try to be more granular to say, well, if this is the score, where can we improve? So what we ask the customers is think now of every step of the way, every touch point that you go through, and give us your satisfaction rating, just again to see where some are good and some are not as good. So on the upper level, you'll see that the solid line, blue line, is the 2019 score, and the dotted line is the 2018. The good news is on almost every category, except for booking, it's sort of relatively there to somewhat a bit better. The dissatisfaction area seems to remain the same. It's security, border control, baggage collection, and now more recently in the onboard service. But what this also tells us is wherever customers have control over their journey, the level of satisfaction is higher than when they actually don't, which is not probably something you don't expect to hear. It's been mentioned this morning. When customers have control of their transactions, they feel more at ease, and it's more of their experience they're controlling. So the trend continues. It's just not moving very much, but the pain points are still the same as far as they're concerned. Then next thing we said is, okay, if that's a global score, is there one region in particular that seems to do a better job than the other one in terms of the results? So can we learn from one region that does it better than another? You see the scores, actually. You see the scores. North Asia seem to have generally a higher satisfaction, to the extreme up, and Africa seems to be more on the lower side. But when you look at what are the top 3 areas in each of the region, they always come up with the same one. So not one region is rated as differently than others. They're in order: security, border control, immigration, and baggage collection. So even that, trying to see can we learn from one area or versus the other one, their pain points are the same. I think the scores only vary because some regions score them more severely than others. But there's nothing that really is not constant from a customer standpoint. So what are the key emerging themes of this year's survey? They go into sort of 5 categories. A number of them really force the industry, probably not something surprising, but keep enabling innovation. Bring us new solutions, leverage what we can do better so that we improve the customer experience. Second one is facilitate the seamless journey, and that is across the entire ecosystem. Like it's working with our partners to make sure there's fluidity in the system and simplicity in the processes that we do. Baggage handling, help me streamline the processes, again, make it easy for me. Improve disruption management, and we'll have a chance to get into more details, certainly understanding the pressure that will be on the industry with the future growth of the industry and all the congestion and the air traffic control situation. You can only imagine that disruptions can get only worse if we're not taking care of this. So there's huge pressure to do a better job. And then definitely addressing the needs of customers with special needs or with disabilities. So the accessibility challenge is getting also bigger, and population is getting more and more numerous in terms of who wants to travel. So service has got to be real better. So let's start with the innovation one. We've queried the customers over the last years to say, how is the check-in experience evolving? And customers had a choice to say, if I have a choice between going to the airport and use traditional check-in at the counter or doing at a kiosk or doing online, where's my preference now? And probably to no one's surprise, the one customer out of 2 really wants now to do check-in on using their application or their devices. So they're really getting away from needing to go to the airport, which again is probably not something surprising in terms of trends, but the numbers are getting higher. And It varies a bit by continent. North Asia seems to be very popular, a bit less again in Africa, along with the trends we've seen. But a key message here is people are using more and more their mobile devices for check-in. It's a rise from 2018. Second question we ask is if you want to be notified by your airline about your travel journey, there's different channels again. So there used to be a category called email, which I used at my age group. It disappeared from the screen. What's left is using the notification via the smartphone app or actually SMS, and even SMS is trending down. So clearly, the airline applications and applications in general are really getting increased usage. And the other question we ask is if you need to buy last-minute ancillary services, whether it's paying for a carry-on baggage or a seat or going to lounge access, what's your preferred method of accessing to this? And again, it's through the airline mobile application, which is most favorite category. So again, mobility, having control over what I do, making sure that I can just take my own decisions on my own and have control over what I'm using my devices. I should not have given you a score. It's time for a second question. I just want to see if you've picked the numbers. So can you please bring up the second question? Okay, we've talked all morning about biometrics, about moving to facial recognition or any form of digital identity. You've seen the question now. I'm going to ask you, if you have the choice of using biometrics instead of your passport, would you want to carry on the normal paper passport, or do you have no preference in terms of the choice? Wow. No preference, stable, not sure. 80%. 80%. This is quite impressive. When you survey people around the world, I think there's a trend evolving in that, but it's one customer out of two. So clearly, maybe you get talking to a more, say, educated group, but people that hear more about this and the pros and cons. But it is moving up. I think it's going to come even more. The things that draw this back sometimes in terms of fear of loss of identity is anytime there's a big event related to data hacking or stuff like that, people seem to have a little step back. Nevertheless, it's on the rise, but very interesting that this group is actually twice as interested to use biometrics. So definitely this is on the rise. This is on the rise. So when we did the survey as well, we said, okay, out of these customers, what currently represents the typical profile of the people who are most prone to adopt biometrics as the current way of travel? Because we also want to understand from an adoption standpoint, who will be the leaders and who might be some of the followers. That's the sort of a profile that you can read in terms of that person. So typically a male flyer, a frequent flyer, more than 10 trips a year, age group 35 to 44, someone who's experienced travel disruption, and sort of obviously willing to share more information. So what's interesting in the profile is, again, you get the experience, people start to see the benefits, probably start to see where else it can be used if it's not used already. So we're going to follow the trend. We'll see next year if other type of groups or profiles are on the rise, but clearly this is sort of the dominant group or profile persona that would use biometrics at this point. We still talk about innovation. We look at what the airlines are doing. We also look at what the other touch points do. One of the very high level of satisfaction area is when immigration services of airports are using electronic gates. 72% satisfied with the experience, and they are because, first of all, they think it's faster than waiting in queue, and sort of the perception that my line is slower than the other one, or it's just automated, and it's faster, it's perceived to be faster than immigration with a human being. People find it intuitive, especially if it talks to biometrics. I mean, it's not all standard, not harmonized everywhere, but people have an ease of use, an increasing ease of use. And people still believe it does enhance, 1 out of 2 still believes it enhances security. And I think part of it is, if you trust that now a machine will do this versus a human, I have to believe that this increases security and it can check it. So that's really a positive move there. And these are some of the examples that can really help improving the scores on the touch points that are still problematic for customers. So when we work with our partners, we really like to show these results and encourage more innovation in terms of the immigration processes. Waiting time. So I guess no surprise as well. The more control you have over your journey, the more freedom you have, the more frictionless it becomes. Then when you still have a place where you have to wait, then it's getting more and more irritating. So one downside of just being so good is whenever you still have touch points, people are becoming a lot more impatient. And so in the three areas that people perceive to wait still the most, to drop your bag, immigration and customs, and baggage collection, we ask customers like, if 10 minutes was your maximum waiting time, how many people would sort of be okay with that? And you can see from a rise that year after year, a larger proportion of people want to wait for less long. So you can see there is again pressure on delivering faster service and eliminating queues. We also just do some elasticity, and we say, well, if 10 minutes would be a benchmark, how better can we be, and how realistic is it to really try to eliminate? So we ask some customers, so if it was just, how many of you would not want to wait more than 5 minutes? And still, you see in immigration customs, like 1 customer out of 4 does not want to wait more than 5 minutes, and 1 out of 5 in the baggage collection. So the key message here is, let's do it faster. Queues should be eliminated as much as possible. Next question in the touch point is your boarding experience. And the question we ask is, what would just make your boarding experience very pleasant from time after time in a consistent way? Almost 2 out of 3 customers are just asking very simple stuff. Make sure you get effective queuing process in the boarding gates. And again, I guess you guys all traveled, you've all experienced this. It varies so much from an airport to another. Methods vary as well. It's something that is very basic. We've boarded people for as long as the industry has been the industry, but it's still perceived from 2 out of 3 customers that we're not doing a good job. It's something should be better. Second factor that is really emerging is being boarded not straight to the airplane, but having to use a coach or a bus to get to your airplane. A lot of customers don't like. 1 out of 2 rate this as if you can improve this, it'll be wonderful. And that is something really emerging from last year. And the third one is the infamous situation with carry-on baggage, the famous dilemma. Do we have aircraft with big, huge bins and we bring stuff on board, or do we just have it checked? So customers are saying, I want to bring it actually more with me, and that would make my boarding wonderful, because that's still the struggle when people board, is fighting for overhead bin space, especially on short-haul routes as opposed to long routes. Nevertheless, these are 3 areas customers are telling us we need to find better ways to do that. When people are connecting, this has been raised this morning on the panel, how do we make a seamless journey from a entire travel situation? And we're asking customers, what would make your journey wonderful when you're connecting through an airport? What steps should we remove? Probably without any surprise, it's anything that is repetitive. So let me not have to go to security again, especially if I don't leave the secure area. Why do I have to be going to security again? I would like not to have to pick up my bag and recheck it, and I don't want to go through immigration again. And please make sure when I transfer, I get the information about my bag that it's going to follow, it's going to be in the right place. Nothing really rocket science. We probably all know this. How do we just make sure we can remove these? We have this repeated year after year and after year. So a lot of it is, regards policy and regulations. Nevertheless, there are still very irritating factors from a customer standpoint. And if we could remove that, you can only imagine a different travel experience you could have, and all the impact of having shorter connections, good information, and everything else. So clearly, from a transfer standpoint, connecting standpoint, this is an area that customers are saying this would be great if the industry would transform that way. One other question we ask, this is a new question that we didn't ask before. We're just curious to see the customer's understanding of traveling on multiple airlines on the journey. There were questions raised last year when we presented this about the efficiency of what we call interlining, or just moving with different carriers. So we started asking the question to the customers is, when you actually fly with multiple carriers, is it clear for you which one you have to check in? And do you know which airline is operating or being the marketing, like as a co-chair perspective, just to understand the customer's knowledge of this? Very good. Actually, 80% of customers feel comfortable. They know when they do that. They know which airline I'm going to fly on, where I check in. Next question then is, now you know about this, but from an execution standpoint, did you have any problems getting your boarding pass on all the journeys, or did you have any, was everything seamless? 3 of customers just actually got their boarding passes all the way through, and 2 did not. So again, what we don't really have details on is it because they're different tickets or whatnot, but bottom line, it's from their perspective. If I don't understand how this is working, I perceive it as not seamless because I didn't get my boarding passes right at the point of departure. So it's always a perception thing. And if there was an issue, which airline do I contact if I connected on a couple of airlines, which is the one I should raise my issues with? And 3 out of 5 knew, but 2 did not. So imagine again, if you get disruption, where am I going? Am I being bounced around between airlines? So it's still not clear. Areas for improvement. We've mentioned this when you look at the various touch points. The ones that airlines have control over, baggage collection is still the biggest irritating factor. We've improved on the check-in, we've improved even probably on bag drop-off, we've improved the shopping experience. Baggage collection is still where we need to do an awful lot of work because this is the biggest pain point that the airline still can control. I'm going to ask you my last question before I reveal the results from the customers. So if we can please bring up the last question. So question is, if you had the choice between those 2 delivery options, would you still want to travel with your bag in a traditional way and carry it with you? Or how many of you would be willing to get your bag taken at home, delivered to your final destination, providing you can track it? So let's see what this crowd says before we get the results. 75. Wow, 80-20. These are good results. So this is what customers are telling now. So globally speaking, not fully 1 customer out of 2 would like to get their bag, assuming they can track it. So there's still trust and probably demonstrated results to be done by the industry so they can actually fully trust that. But 1 customer out of 2 would be willing to try the experience. Of the remaining 54%, we asked the question, okay, will you bring it on a traditional way? So 1 out of 2 of the remaining 54% not only want to travel with their bag, but they want to carry it on board. They want to carry it as a carry-on baggage. So again, some messages, some things to investigate. Why is it so? So the next question we ask is, okay, why won't you check in a bag? Forget about the tracking situation. Why are you just not willing to check your bag today? 52%, I just don't want to wait for my bag. Regardless if it's a short haul, long, I just don't want to wait for it. What are the other reasons? I need my essentials. I did pack restricted items. I'm afraid of the damage of the bag. I don't want to pay, and I'm afraid of a loss. So these are all valid reasons, but yet again, it sends a message to industry as to how can we instill some confidence in a customer so that we can move that, because otherwise we're going to still managing bags the way we've always done. Disruption management, we wanted to test out from the respondent, before you give us any advice on that, maybe how many of you have experienced disruptions in the past year? More than 1 customer out of 2 have some sort of disruption, so it's very relevant. Chances are every or one of your second flight may have some sort of disruption. So that's a good base to just get some further advice on how to do better on this. So if you have suffered disruption, how do you improve the situation? What are customers asking the industry to do to make it a better experience in difficult times? Very simple stuff, as Nick mentioned this morning. There's basic stuff that is repeated year after year. We're still not any better. Give me real-time and accurate information. And I think especially nowadays that there are so many sources of information that customers can use to find where the flight status is or baggage, is it more important that we don't confuse them and we try to find a way that they get the right information, the same information, regardless of which channel they use. So very simple. Tell me real time, especially about the flight status and baggage. Next, very important area. So once I did get my information about where I'm going, make sure my rebooking is a smooth process. Make sure it's well done, it's not confusing. Ideally, I've got options, but improve that area because, again, disruptions have happened since we run the airline industry, and yet the rebooking part is still very problematic for at least 1 or 2 customers. So there's room for improvement as well in that area. Last category, and certainly a key one, a critical one, is Any passengers in our survey base, we ask customers that have some sort of disabilities or accessibility challenges to travel. If we compare your travel experience to the one of a customer without a disability or challenge, how would you rate this? As you can see, the pattern is a bit of the same. Every touch point that is in control is a bit better. Every one you don't control is not good. But on every single point, the traveler's experience of we have disability is scoring far less than the ones of customers without, which again may not be surprising, but it should send a strong signal to the industry is how do we improve drastically and fast on that. And through the panel we have later on, we'll have a chance to hear live from one of our fellow travelers who can share with us some experiences and lessons we can learn from it. The last couple of slides, I wanted to show a bit of the personas that we have through the survey, because over time we have questions about try to single out the characteristics of some of the travel group and what is most important to them. So there's a number of things we ask them to rate in terms of their travel choices and which ones come at the top of the list. In no particular order of importance. If you are a traveler with disability, what comes up is, I do prefer to check in at the airport. This is something I still want to have. I want to be, having support doing that. I do prefer that an agent drop the baggage on their behalf. Should not be surprising, whatever it's possible to provide still the help. When travel is disrupted, just like everybody else, I want to know where my baggage is. So again, it's an additional challenge. And having Wi-Fi is very important for them as well on board. So just nothing really outrageous. I think this, but we have to listen to these groups and make sure that we can just meet the expectations and even exceed them. The other profile that we wanted to say, because we were asked last year, I see when we were present, is do we see anything particular from a female traveling perspective, or any needs that we're not catering well as an industry that would be very different from the male category, and just to see if there's big discrepancies. Nothing, I guess, and it doesn't mean because it shows on that slide, actually it doesn't show everywhere, but from a female traveler perspective, the scores are higher in terms of importance than the rest of the group. So they seem to be, right now, less willing to replace, to use biometrics. They're not as prone yet to use biometrics. Less willing to share personal information. The question we ask actually here is personal information to make your travel journey earlier. There's a bit more reluctance from the female group to just share more information at this point. Access to essentials during the flight are it's important, and additional fees. And so additional fees is not why I'm not going to check a bag. I just want to get access to my essentials. So checking fee is not an issue. And compared to the other group, they'll be quite more willing to have their baggage delivered to destination rather than carrying them over. And again, just same thing important to them when my trip starts. Let me know the status of my flight, let me know the status of my bag, keep me informed throughout the journey. Our final category are new emerging travelers, I still call them millennials. And you'll hear from one millennial live today who's going to tell us if this is true or not. So it's a bit of a challenge for our guest. And we don't want to paint stereotypes. This is again the emerging characteristics of the group. So we'll be able to see if they're reflective. Very at ease of using mobile devices, so they want to pay with a wallet on their smart device, probably because they do it not only for the airline industry, but most of the purchases now. Interesting, I like to enjoy passport and visa stamps. So probably because very open to share their travel experience, and the passport might be significant, and I guess we all like stamps, but that age group is very eager to be able to share that. They don't want to check in bags, they need the essentials during the flight. Having Wi-Fi on board is important. That is, of all the age category, this is the one that scores by far the highest. And Taras will tell us why when he's on stage. And the other thing also is they want to prepare their travel well. They want to be notified about the regulations and visa regulations, so when they get to the country, there's no surprise. So, in a very high-level nutshell, I want to share some of the key highlights. Like I said, there's far more information, detailed information by regions, by groups, some of the highlights. The rest will be debated by the panel here. If you want more information, you can go on our website. There's another survey that we do, which is more airline-specific, that is called AirSat. It's not the purpose of the presentation, but it's also accessible. And what I would like to do now is, before we get the panel on stage, in the past days, there have been some industry group meetings here, and we asked a number of you your impressions or your feedback in terms of what do you feel your pain points are and where should we improve. So we'll play 2 short videos, and then we will have the panel on stage. So can you please play the videos?
I think at the moment the waiting queues for the security control and the document control.
The biggest issue I see now, it's the immigration checks that we have to do.
My biggest pain point is with security and immigration.
The biggest pain point in the travel journey right now has to be security.
My biggest pain point, given I experienced it yesterday, was not knowing where my bags were and actually finding out my bags had been lost.
So I guess for me, probably one of the biggest pain points would be security.
The luggage control, where you need to kind of open your luggage and unpack and divide stuff. This is kind of annoying for every passenger.
When you have to get your laptop out of your bag and have to remove your belt, everything like that, it's always very long.
The biggest pain point for me would just be, finding, food and vendors within airports.
I would say that the biggest pain would be the queues at the airport.
As a passenger, I would love to have a really seamless customer experience from the point I get out of the aircraft through to the airport.
The layout of every airport can be so different that it can be pretty confusing to find your way from one place to the next, even between terminals and that kind of thing.
Communication at the last moment. So when you're at a gate and then things change or you don't know what's happening and then the communication is just lacking.
So my main pain point is actually the boarding, which is completely unorganized, and the facilities that are not here. It's really like a pain, yeah.
I would like to see the biometric or innovation in the future.
I think the biggest change will come in regards to the passenger identity and where that's captured much earlier in the process off-site from the airport.
Facial recognition seems to be the way that most organizations are going, but is facial recognition the only one that we should be focused on, especially in the aviation business? And do we try to focus and allow the consumer to use multi-factor authentication?
That's a tough one. I feel like there's a lot of opportunities that we could have. I think logistics are definitely going to be a big part, a big change, so the better the logistics can be.
I would see the biometric technology implemented. For example, the automatic boarding using the biometric technologies.
There will be the leveraging of technologies such as biometrics and intelligence, business intelligence.
I don't think that there's going to be any company within the aviation sphere that doesn't rely on immersive technologies to some degree, particularly virtual reality.
I'm excited about seeing technology come into the boarding space to potentially incorporate biometrics and to be adopted widely so that perhaps it's just facial recognition or other biometric measures that help you get on the plane faster.
In communication, because I already think that the whole customer journey and communication is improving, and just social media and all the quick responses to people's questions.
I would say the check-in. I would see like we just go through directly to the gate and we don't do this check-in like we are doing it today.
All right, so this is it for me. I would now like to invite Kasia on stage. It will end her panel, and we will get a quick introduction from everyone, and the discussion will continue. So thank you very much.